on being fishers of men and women, because we are inclusive. We don't discriminate here. But I will be talking about my experience, as I'm sure there's a lot of you in the audience that have a lot more experience and expertise in this area, but I will be going through some of my experiences and lessons learned, so some of you might not hit the same pitfalls that I have in my career while running phishing campaigns for users. So thank you for being here. I'll try to keep it in the time frame I've been given. All right, so I'm going with a gospel theme, if you haven't realized by the title. But I am Ryan Burnett. I am currently the Director of Security Engineering and Operations at Pluralsight. Been there about 4 years, but I've been around. I've been around the valley. I started my career at the Air Force Base. Did that for a number of years, got into security up there. Then I went over to Intermountain Healthcare, was there for about 5 years. And then I got tired of working for giant companies and started working for tech startups in Utah. So that's what I've been doing for the past, almost 10 years of my career is doing tech startup work. So it's been fun going from large giant companies to small ones that usually had one security hire before me. I was usually the second, and it was greenfield. We were building from scratch, writing policies, super fun stuff. So if some of those programs aren't the best, that's probably my fault because I built them. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about where we're at with phishing in just the industry at large. We are seeing phishing attacks on pretty much every major breach that happens. We're seeing phishing attacks as part of that breach. So we are seeing, it started out with casting a wide net. You would see these Nigerian prince emails come through, and they were dumbed down on purpose. A lot of times we're like, who would fall for that? And that's actually what the attackers want. They want the people that would fall for that. They don't want to go for the sophisticated people that are not going to fall for their scams. So then we saw it move to spearfishing. Spearfishing has become very common. It's where you have a targeted attack against an individual or a company or a group. It's a lot more specific, and they'll gather information. They'll do intelligence against the company, find out things. LinkedIn is one of the best places to get information about a company and what you want to attack and who. You can find out who their admins are, who their HR people are for a company. So be very careful what you put on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn doesn't even have a photo, and it has a couple of hashtags of what I do. That's my whole LinkedIn profile. So if you look for me on LinkedIn, you're probably not going to find me. Then we saw whaling and executives getting phished and targeted, or spoofing and pretending to be an executive. We call this business email compromise, where they're pretty basic. They say, hey, I'm in a meeting right now, but I need you to do a task for me. Go and buy 50 gift cards from Apple to some random person in the company that they've never communicated with before, but it's the CEO or the CFO asking for it, so they do it and they fall for it. And I've seen and heard of companies that this happens and they get bit. Usually a lot of money involved. Then smishing has become a thing where it's SMS, text messaging, the spam texts that you see, and then vishing, just people. This is the old school call on the phone and try to get somebody to fall for something. Lately, we've been seeing SEO poisoning, where they try to become the first link that shows up in a Google search. So if you can figure out how to get your keywords and stuff for your phishing site to come up before the other one, people will click that one, and then you try to get them to log in, get their credentials. And then snowshoeing and hailstorming, these are new terms that have come about in the past few years. Snowshoeing is doing a light touch, where they do it kind of very lightly, sprinkle a few people in the company. They don't go loud and fast, but that's what hailstorming is. They go loud and fast at a company, and they do it in a burst, and they try to get everybody at once, because there is a shelf life for phishing. A phishing email has a shelf life, and it's usually a matter of days, if not hours. So they have to be very adept. So those are the current landscape of what we're seeing. Also recently learned of something called phishing as a service. And we've heard of ransomware as a service, and that blew us away. Well, now they have phishing as a service. There are companies, this one called Bulletproof Link or Anthrax, it's gone by a few different names. You can, for a small sum of $800 a month, sign up for this service. They have support. They have templates built for you. There's over 120 templates that you get out of the box. They'll build you custom templates if you want. And it's turned into organized crime for phishing. It's crazy, but this is where we're at. It's very effective, and it's scary as all get out. But this was caught by Microsoft. They discovered this phishing as a service ring. And they've been able to take it down, but it's just going to keep coming back. It's really hard, especially with all the different countries and the laws, and we can't get our reach into them to tell them to knock it off. So let's see. All right. So let's talk about building a phishing program at the company that you work. How many, just by raise of hands, know that you have a internal phishing program? How many? Oh, that's awesome. That's about half the room, if not more. So it is something that we have to do in our industry, unfortunately. And I've worked with people that they get a little defensive, or they feel bad about running a phishing program internally. They feel like they're tricking their users, and they want the users to trust the security team. So I've seen, in my career, my experience, I've seen some phishing programs go bad. So there are a few different types of phishing tests that I've identified that you want to conduct in a company. First, you want to try susceptibility. That's the number one. You want to see if your users are susceptible to phishing, and I guarantee you they are. The stats that I've seen across multiple companies now is generally it's 40% will click and 20 to 25% will give you creds. And that is scary, even your admins. The thing about phishing is that if it's good enough, or if the person's distracted, or it looks like something they normally see, they can fall for a fish. I could fall for a fish. Like, we're not immune, none of us. So we don't ever want to embarrass people for falling for a phishing. You also want to be able to test your infrastructure, especially with the move to the cloud. We have providers like Google and O365 that are really trying to stomp out phishing, and it's really, really hard for them. But they are doing all of the buzzwords, the machine learning, the AI, to detect phishing. With that, they'll stomp on your phishing campaigns when you try to do legitimate phishing, if that's even a thing. But they will stomp on you, and you're going to have to fight with them a little bit. And then also you want to test your incident response process for phishing to see if your team, if your users know how to report phishing, for one, and if your team and any automation that you've built is working. You want to test that as well. So those are the three main types that I've kind of discovered in my career that you want to test. So we always want to, we don't want to lose the trust of our users. We want them to trust the security team and come to us. So even though we think like these bad guys, we want to be good. We want to make sure that we don't burn that trust, because it's really easy to lose. So we have, as we're building a phishing campaign in our organization, you want to make sure you get your leadership to buy in. If you don't, it will go bad. People will complain. When they realize it's the security team that tricked them, they get so mad. They get so upset. If it's some faceless person out of Russia or India or Africa. They're like, oh man, I can't believe I fell for that. But when they figure out it was Ryan that did it, they get so upset and angry because they know me. How could I dare break that trust? So they're going to complain about a phishing campaign. So make sure that your leadership backs you up. If they don't do it. Just don't. Your company is probably not ready for phishing simulation and training in-house until you get an executive team or leadership that will back you up. Also, let the stakeholders know, let the middle management know why this is important that we do this. We're not doing it to try to trick users and make the security team look awesome. We're trying to train them for when the real ones do get through, and they do get through. There's no filters that are going to catch them all. Also, I've learned that if you give a heads up, just a quick Slack message or an email to the executive of the organization that you're targeting, and you will be targeting an organization within your company, whether you realize it or not, someone is going to get hammered when you do a phishing campaign, and the users are going to either reach out to IT and the help desk, they'll get it the most, or if you do one around benefits, the HR team is going to reach out. You got to let them know ahead of time so they know that it isn't real and they don't overreact, and that they know how to respond. Also, it's very helpful to take the exact phishing email that you've crafted and take a screenshot of it and share it in your executive leadership meeting and say, this is the email, this is the subject, this is where it's coming from. You don't want your leaders falling for it. You want them to detect it, or their executive assistants to detect it. We have this industry, never hack up your chain. You don't want to embarrass them because they control our jobs and our paychecks. So set up like a RACI or a RAPID, if you've heard of RAPID, around who's responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. And then RAPID is recommend, agree, perform, input, and decide. Who has the decision on whether you do phishing and the go, no go. So let's talk about a couple of times when I did a campaign and it went horribly wrong. I was working at a tech company here in the Valley, and it was a very manual program that we were running. I would go in every week and train the new hires about information security, why it's important, and teach them about phishing. And then I would look them in the eye, every single one of them, and say, I am going to phish you this week. I'm going to phish you, expect it, be looking for it. And again, I'd get like 40 to 45% that would fall for it, that would click, and 20 to 25% that would give me their creds. So we decided to switch it up one week, and we crafted the email to look like it was coming from HR, and these are all new hires, right? So we said in the body of the email, or in the subject, urgent action required, benefits set up incorrectly. And then the body said, hey, from your HR team, it was just a generic hey, it didn't even give their name. Your HR team, hey, as you onboarded, your benefits didn't get set up correctly, you got to click this link or your benefits aren't going to go through. 80% of the people clicked and gave me creds because they were new hires, they just set up their benefits, it didn't work, got an email saying it didn't work. Now, it was a very effective phish, but the HR team came unglued. They received, every single one of those people came to the HR team and said, what's going on? Why aren't my benefits set up? I hadn't told them beforehand that we'd switched it up. And we also had some people that had onboarded and then they had to take immediate medical leave because of some health conditions. And so it hit them right home. And they were super upset and furious, and I got a really good chewing out by HR for that one. So it can go bad if you don't communicate, and if the words the HR, my friend, used were, that fish was too good. And I'm like, there's no such thing as too good of a fish. The attackers don't care about your people's feelings, but when they know it's you, when they see your face, they get really defensive and offended that you broke their trust. So be aware of that. I recommend that you create a phishing manifesto. So many of you have probably seen the Hacker Manifesto. I would say for your company, create a phishing manifesto, what you will do and what you won't do. And publish it, get it out there. These are kind of I came up with 11. I tried to get it down to 10, but 11 commandments of what you should do for a phishing program. So, thou shalt publish a policy where users can get to it. I would say a company intranet. That's the best place. Put it in your onboarding if you can get your HR team and recruiting team to help you out. Let them know that we're not trying to just trick them and play stump the chump. Thou shalt let the users know you're not trying to do that. Thou shalt be as transparent as possible. Sometimes you don't want to divulge too much about a campaign and fish. And it's going to cause a lot of heartburn. They're going to be like, is this real? Is this a test? I don't know. And you're going to have people, and with the advent of Slack and Teams and HipChat and all these systems now, they don't go to IT or security first. They go to Slack first. And they don't even go to their coworkers first. They go right to general and they throw it in there and say, hey, has anybody else got this? Oh yeah, I got this. It looks fishy. I don't know. And it just blows up. And you've got all sorts of attention around it. So try to be as transparent as you can. Thou shalt direct users that fail to a notification or additional training. A lot of times in phishing campaigns, you can send them to like a 403 or a 500 internal server error. And what that does, it doesn't close the loop for the user. They're still like, what? I clicked the link. Like, why am I not getting to the page or get some? So if you create the landing page where they put in their credentials, they hit submit, and it takes them to another page, you can close that loop for them. So if you make it a training like, hey, that was a fish, sorry, you fell for it, and train them immediately, it's a lot more effective. If you just send them out to an error page, they're like, did I get my gift card? Did I get my, right? So then they start calling up and saying, hey, I submitted it 12 times. Like, where's my, yeah, something's wrong with the server. So try to direct them to additional training and notification. Also track success at an individual level. I know a lot of companies, you have to be careful because you don't want to single people out. I would say never share the individual results, even with leadership. I would keep it at like an organizational level and bubble those up, because if you share individuals, it's going to get out. Oh my gosh, Colin falls for everything, right? Like you're going to start picking on people, and no one wants that. No, Colin's great. It was only 3 in a row. Let's see. Also, provide the metrics up to them. Hopefully you're having some kind of quarterly, at minimum quarterly, hopefully monthly touch point with your leaders. Bubble those metrics up. Make sure that they know this is important, that we're tracking it, we're tracking improvement. Now we could really get into the weeds on, do you do the same email over and over again? Do you do different emails over and over again? And it's really hard for those metrics, but we have to do something. We have to be trying to mitigate these phishing. So those are the thou shalts. Then I've got some shalt nots here. Thou shalt not collect passwords. This one, if you want to argue with me on this, let's talk, because in my experience, there's really nothing good you can do with a captured password. The only exception is if somebody is jerking your chain with your phishing campaign. So one of our first campaigns we had this really smart user that created a Python script to just shove a bunch of crap into our phishing page. And then we had to go figure out, oh crap, we got to turn on rate limiting and all sorts of stuff. But he really jacked with our metrics, so we had to go and purge all of his stuff, and he was just shoving garbage in for the username and the password. Now, that would be maybe the only reason to try to collect passwords if somebody's jerking with you. But you can probably figure that out with rate limiting and using a result ID or a RID of some unique link for the user, so you know who to go yell at. And this individual and I had a little talk, like, hey, you don't want to get on our radar. Like, this is not, it was cool, but don't get on our radar. Definitely don't collect any personal information. You don't want to be accountable for socials and medical info. Do not use tests to belittle or embarrass users. And oh man, you want to create a wall of sheep. You want to like tell people that this is a problem and Dan's the worst, right? Like you just want to, but try not to. Don't disclose technical details. You don't want to teach your users like all your tricks. And a lot of the solutions nowadays, if you look under the hood, it's kind of easy to tell that it's a fish if you're looking at headers. But if users are looking at headers, that's a win. Like, that's awesome. Our users look at internet headers on their emails. Don't apologize for conducting tests. This is where you don't want to lose their trust, but also don't be like, oh, I'm so sorry you fell for that. Like, just say, hey, this is why we test. This is why we do it. And then also, don't cause widespread panic throughout the company. Everybody's getting fired, we're getting acquired, like all these different things that would really freak people out. Especially if you're doing a small target group and you're doing like maybe a quarter of your users a quarter and you're going throughout the year to head everybody, you're going to send this out to 25% of the people and the other 75% are like, I didn't get that email. What are you talking about? We're getting acquired. Like you don't want to cause a bunch of problems. Okay, so as you're going through your campaign, you're conducting it, it really, really helps. I can't stress this enough, to have the comms ready for the teams that are going to get hammered. This will help them to just copy paste into an email, into the Teams or the Slack chat, and just let them know. And have your people push them through the process, right? Don't just say, oh yeah, it was a fish, don't worry about it. Like, say, no, that looks fishy. How about you send that to phishing at and your company name, or security at your company name, and have them follow the process for reporting phishing. And hopefully you have that process set up. Also, these mid-level leaders, you want to make sure that they're aware, and maybe you divulge, maybe you don't. It's a case-by-case basis, but execs, you definitely want them in the loop. You don't want your execs to ever get embarrassed. Okay, also, there might be times when you have to halt a campaign. There might be times where it goes south and everybody's freaking out and banging on the HR person's door, but you may need to halt or completely abandon a campaign. So have that ahead of time. Have that figured out when we will do that. Like, who decides who does that? Does the help desk person call up and yell at us and that's good enough? If that's okay, that's how you want to do it. But decide ahead of time. So when you do get some pushback, especially as you're beginning these programs. Also, how long are you going to leave it running? I wouldn't leave a campaign running more than a week, personally. I think that's plenty of time. You have a shelf life on the fish anyway. Most of the users that are out on leave aren't going to go look at their email anyway. And then what to do when they fail. Like, what is the process for people and how to report? So this has been extremely helpful for me and my team as we go through and do a campaign. We create what we call a pre-flight checklist and things we're going to check off for every campaign that we do. Right now we're not on an automated, we're doing quarterly and we're doing it manually kicking off. We don't just have a system that is automating it yet. So define your roles and responsibilities. Who's like the lead for the campaign? Who are the various approvers? If you need help with the tooling, if you need help with email, who's your email admin? Who you're going to reach out to? O365 and Google admins have a lot of tools. If your emails, maybe you're running a campaign of a few hundred users and the first 200 landed in the inbox, but the second 200, the machine learning learned about the fish, and now they're going to junk and spam. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to leave them? Are you testing the infrastructure? Are you trying to test the susceptibility of your users? So do you need those email admins to go pull them out of junk and put them in the inbox, right? I've done that, and it's very effective. Who are you going to tell before you even start? Who do you have to tell about the campaign and that it's even happening? So when are you going to do it? What time? Send the emails by a certain time. Maybe I've seen both ways where you can either just blast them all at once, and if it's a smaller number, it's usually not a big deal, or maybe you want to trickle them out over a few days. But I'll tell you, like, people, especially nowadays with Slack and HipChat and Teams, like, they're going to say, I got a phishing email, and the cat's out of the bag. So that shelf life just gets shortened even more. So maybe you have a send, you start at 9 a.m. and you go till noon, right? And you set that time window to trickle it out over that time. That usually is enough that some of these controls by email providers won't catch the fish, unless we're talking thousands. That's a different ballgame. When are you going to finish it by? How many days? What's the pausing and halting criteria? Campaign type, is it susceptibility, infrastructure, or the incident response that we're testing? Do we acknowledge the campaign? Do we tell the user, yep, that was totally us? Or do we let it sit, let it simmer, see what happens when users don't know if it was a security team? There's some risk there. If you let it simmer and you don't fess up to it, your users might be like, why isn't security jumping in on this conversation? And you could lose a little bit of trust there, so be careful. Will we move them from spam to junk if they start getting hammered? Which teams are really going to be impacted? Like, really think this through. IT help desk for sure. And then whatever, if it's an HR-based phishing, talk to HR. Talk to the frontline people, the people in HR teams. Make sure that the stakeholders get notified. How many users are you going to actually target? Is this a one-time burn on a phishing campaign? And then also get their responses in their hands. Get everything ready for all the responses. Maybe you have a security or a general or something that you can respond quickly, just paste it in there. As long as they're seeing that the security team is engaged and like responding, it usually comforts them a little bit. But if they just get crickets, they're gonna freak out. And then if you have an automated system for reporting, and we call it haptic feedback on our system. So as they submit, like, hey, I think this is phishing to our phishing domain, then we send immediately like, hey, we got it. Thank you, your email landed in our inbox, and they get an automated response right back. So they at least get that haptic feedback to the user that it at least went somewhere. It didn't go off into a black hole, which a lot of times, unfortunately, it does. And then we try to do an SLA for responding within 24 hours. So last part of the checklist, this is when you're actually at go time. We sit down and we say, okay, is a campaign created? Are all the knobs and dials tuned? Are all the users and groups uploaded in the platform that we're using? Are they up to date? When's the last time it did a sync with our directory that we're pulling in, or the upload from a CSV? Have we distributed everything, notified the people that need to know? Also, I will always recommend doing a test before you really launch the full campaign. Test against yourselves, your team. See if you're getting banners popping up, especially in O365 and Google. You'll start seeing some banners pop up on the emails, and maybe you don't care about those banners because that's good that the platform is alerting the users, but maybe you don't want those banners to show up. So do some tests. Do we have the Close the Loop website up, and is it working? And then any automation, is the email admin actually in the office when we're going to do this? Do we get final approval for a go, no go? It's all scheduled, and then when's the close date? So this checklist that I've just shared has been extremely helpful in making sure we do it consistently and that we're defensible. And we even have like artifacts. If we ever get called on the carpet, we can say, no, this is the campaign, this is what we did, and you don't have to worry about getting chewed out. So some common issues that I've seen when doing these is whitelisting on the email gateways. So a lot of companies will put an email gateway like a Proofpoint or a Mimecast, maybe a Trend, out in front of their email. and it'll get caught by them before it ever hits like O365 or Google or internal Exchange servers. They'll catch it for you. So you have to whitelist either the domains or the IP addresses. And then the banners, oh boy. Okay, we're going to talk about the banners a little bit. And then the spam confidence levels. I think this is specific just to O365. I don't remember seeing it in Gmail. But it will actually, in the header, show you the spam confidence level. I think they call it SEL, and it has a number. And you can figure out if you're phishing even, where are we on that level of getting smashed by their machine learning. So check those headers. So I'm going to introduce you to Blarvis. Blarvis is the machine learning, the nickname that I've given to the derpy AI machine learning algorithm that O365 and Gmail use. And it's this little AI monster that's checking all the emails and looking through them, and he's pretty derpy, okay? And sometimes he doesn't do what you tell him to. So you're sending your emails through, you got regular emails coming in, you got your fish coming in, and they've got, this AI is the best thing since sliced bread, according to the email providers. And it's got all the acronyms, blockchain, AI, neural net, whatever. You're sending your fishes, and then as the AI, they will never tell you what the AI is looking for. And it's frustrating, but I get it, because if that information got out, now all the scammers and the phishers, the real ones, now know, oh, well, if we change our email to look like this or change our headers to look like this, they get right through, right? So they do their secret sauce learning, Blarvis chews through them all, and then all of a sudden, poof, your phishing email just got caught by Blarvis. So be very careful as you're doing this. Make sure you test. He will stomp all over them and chew them up, and they'll just get eaten. So he'll send it to spam. He'll even reject or quarantine, depending on your settings. The banners, oh man. I don't know if you've seen it in Google. They've turned it on for all the individual users. The Google admin for enterprise has to go in and turn them on and set the settings. But if you have a personal Gmail account, you'll get those yellow banners across the top that says, hey, this didn't come from your organization, or hey, this one looks weird, or other people said this was phishing. The worst one I've seen is when you go in and tell Blarvis in the Google admin console, whitelist this email, whitelist this sender, whitelist this DNS, and Blarvis goes in and puts a gray banner across the top that says, your email admin told me to whitelist this, so I'm going to cover my butt. I would have blocked it, but that's the worst. So be aware of Blarvis. All right, how to get to expert level phishing. Yeah, we'll talk through each one of these. Legit domain names. So finding a similar domain name to yours is pretty easy to do. Either a misspelling or you're using a different alphabet to sign up for a domain name is very effective. You can also use subdomains. Maybe you find company benefits or corporate rewards cards for gift cards, and you put your company name in front of it. That's very effective. A lot of times with Shadow IT and all these different SaaS companies, teams will go sign up for services, and the subdomain is what says, oh yeah, this was our company that signed up for it, even though it's this random other top-level domain. Also, warming up your domains by registering them, maybe at the first of the year. Plan out your campaigns, get your domains registered. And so one thing we notice is users will just go do a whois and be like, oh, this was registered last week. This is totally phishing. So maybe if you want to be a little tougher and be expert, you could register them a year in advance. And then they're like, ooh, this one's been here a while. So you can kind of get a little more effective that way. Warm up your email server as well. I've used Postfix, I've used Mailgun. I prefer having my own infrastructure and not relying on Mailgun, but Mailgun's free if you keep it under a certain threshold. You don't have to pay a lot. So depending on your company size, just running a Postfix server and then lock it down, so it's doesn't become a relay out on the internet for everybody else to use. So make sure that you've got to lock down the IPs and maybe that it can only send to itself to send them out. Also, baby domains. So that's what I was talking about. They'll go look and see when it was registered. And even the email providers and the gateway providers will say, well, that domain's only a week old or a month old. So we're going to put extra scrutiny and raise that spam confidence level up. And so be aware of those. And I would just say, start sending out a few messages, legit messages to yourself. Do maybe 100 a day or for a few weeks and just send them out. That's not too crazy. Stagger them out. They're not too smart yet. Like, they're not going to notice if you do it on the hour, right? But once they do kind of pick onto that, oh, they're sending out 10 emails every hour on the hour, they might start, the machine learning might say, that's fishy. They haven't yet, but just be aware it might figure that out. And then don't go full bore for maybe a month or two as you're warming up this mail server. Let me talk about Emailgeddon for a minute. So we had, at a company I'm aware of, had a top-level domain that was being used for their corporate email and their marketing emails. And the marketing team did a campaign with a very, very, very large company and sent out 40,000 emails to all their users. And the users weren't expecting this email, and they said, spam, fish, like this is, I didn't know this was coming. Well, that company was using O365. And O365 has kind of this crowdsource model where if they start getting a lot of reports into this company, they'll trickle it up to the top level O365 gateways. And now every company using O365 gets these protections. So when you get thousands of people saying this is a phishing or a spam, that bubbles up. So this company was sending legit corporate email, but their marketing emails were getting marked as spam, and all their corporate emails to O365 customers were now blocked and sent to junk or blocked completely. So it created something called Emailgeddon. I would say compartmentalize. I hope you can see that picture. It's like a ship. Compartmentalize your domains. If you can, get a separate top-level domain for sending your marketing emails than you send for your corporate emails. If you can't do it and your marketing team and everybody's up in arms, get a subdomain. Have one that's like your product.companyname.com or your application.companyname or marketing.companyname, and keep them as separate as you can so when one of them blows up, it doesn't take down the whole ship and your whole company's emails are now on the spam list. So, let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the different technologies you can use for email. Sender Policy Framework, SPF. This is basically send on behalf of. Nowadays with SaaS companies, everybody's going out there and they're trying to use different tools to send emails for them, for their department use or for the application use. And so you have to go in and say in your headers and on the internet, in the DNS for your domain, you have to say this SPF, this is who's allowed to send as us. They can use our domain, they can use their own domain, but these are the people that are allowed to send as us. So there's a specific format. You can have multiple records for this. There is an RFC limit of 10 DNS lookups per SPF record. So if you're going in there and putting a bunch of domain names, you hit that 10th one, some of the email gateways crap out, and they're like, invalid SPF record. So what you can do is break it out and have different SPF records. And if you have IP addresses for all your send on behalf of people, you can put all those in one SPF record, and you can have a ton of those. But if you're doing DNS names, just be aware there's a limit of 10. There is at the end of SPF, you can do either a tilde or a minus. The tilde is like a soft fail. You're telling the recipient email server what to do anyway, but if you do a tilde all that says, hey, just soft fail if it doesn't match our SPF. If you do a minus all, you're telling the recipient email server, hey, dude, if it didn't come from this list, block it, reject it, bounce it, whatever you need to do. But because of the way email is, you're at the mercy of that recipient email server to decide what to do, whether it's going to soft fail, hard fail, whatever. There's a great website for troubleshooting your phishing emails, mxtoolbox.com. It's got wonderful tools for SPF, also for Dkim. Dkim is basically public-private key pair that just, all it doesn't encrypt an email. What it does, it signs the email. It says it wasn't tampered with in transit, over the wire, over the internet. It is basically like a hash saying it was signed with this key. Here's our public key. You can check it. And it's signed and says, nope, nobody messed with the email in transit. It's not encrypted, it's signed. It also helps build that reputation if you put a Dkim out on your phishing domains and lets those email providers know that you're legit. So you set up a domain key up there. Again, MX Toolbox will help you set this up. Dmarc. Dmarc takes Dkim and SPF and kind of adds another layer on top of it to make sure that you set up Dkim and SPF correctly. It gives you extra visibility on who's sending as you and receiving emails, and they can respond back, and you can tell them whether reject, quarantine. Let's see, you can ramp it up. If you see in that Dmarc, second bullet from the bottom, that you can % equals 100. That's 100% of our emails. Make sure it has a Dmarc. You can ramp that up from like 10%, 20%. And just as you're rolling Dmarc out and making sure that there aren't legit people out there spoofing you that you're going to block, go ahead and start messing around with the % there. MX records, it's really easy. On your DNS, just do a text record with your MX pointing to the IP address of where your mail servers are. This will help legitimize your phishing emails. Few open source options out there for phishing. GoFish, I really, really like GoFish, but it's been dormant during the pandemic. There haven't been a lot of changes made, but Jordan Wright put a ton of great work, so props to him. It's written in Go, the Google language. It's really easy to set up. It has great dashboards. It makes it really simple. Evil Jinx is a second one. This one is really, really cool, but man, is it is legit. Like, you can do 2FA interception with Evil Jinx. So, Social Engineering Toolkit by Trusted Sec and Dave Kenny is great. And then also script it out yourself if you really hate yourself. Because every change you have to go in the script. A few commercial options. I won't name them by name, but I've used a couple on this list, and they're okay. They're pretty decent. But there's a link if you want to go look at them and compare. All right. As you're going through, you're going to have to become kind of an email expert if you want to do really good phishing, and you're going to have to start learning about headers and how they work. And every email that gets sent is a brand new email. When you hit forward on an email, that is a brand new email that takes the body from the other one and has new headers, and now that gets sent, and then it's done. That email exists for that conversation. When they hit reply, it's a brand new email, different headers. So as you're going through and setting up these campaigns and you're getting users to report, it's really important to get those original email headers from the original fish to tell if it's legit or not. There's a couple of tools. MX Toolbox, Azure Websites has a great tool for parsing out those email headers to make them more human readable. But as you get into this more and do it enough, it'll become like the Matrix, and you just can read through headers and be a nerd. Okay. So setting up an infrastructure, I don't have a ton of time left, but I would do all of it. I would do DNS, Dkim, SPF, Dmarc, MX records. I'd set up postfix on my box. Really recommend you use your own infrastructure if you can. It's going to be easier, but I've heard you can use Linode to set up some phishing servers as long as you don't go crazy. You install Go, get GoFish going. Everything gets stored into a .db file for GoFish. It's really easy if you have to back up or move to a new version. You just take that database file. You can also, if you're going to be putting images into your HTML email, you can set up a simple Python HTTP server on the same server, have it run on some obscure port like 9090 or something, and you can, when the email calls back to get the image, you're serving the image from the same server. So you can use the same domain, same IP address to put the images into the HTML email. Then you have to set up landing pages, sending profiles, email templates, and your recipients, and then you're good to go. Make sure you have some way to get that reporting of phishing back to you, so you know when people are reporting it rather than clicking or submitting. They're calling security or the help desk. Make sure that's all set to go. Here's a little script for GoFish that I wrote to just start. I get on my GoFish server and I run this script. It does everything for me, runs it in a screen, and then sets up my Python server, and then just logs it out so I have some evidence that it's actually doing something. And then to kill it at the end of the campaign, I just run another script, kill it. Pretty slick. I'm almost out of time, but I wanted to share one thing here that's totally unrelated. But there is a thread on Twitter about how to scare a security professional in 5 words or less. Go ahead and you can watch the video later or take a picture of this, but this is awesome, and it's going to help you have a great Halloween. So I will say go create a phishing program if you don't have one. Go preach this gospel of phishing training to the world, and thank you for coming to my talk. He has a question. His mic's not working. What's your question?
That's embarrassing. How do you scram or halt your phishing program in the middle when something hits spam? Do you send out an email saying, "Hey, I phished everyone"?
It depends on how bad it goes. If you're getting a ton of blowback, maybe you might need to do a comms out to everyone saying, "Hey, everybody, just FYI, that email that went out was a phish. You don't need to freak out." Maybe you do it in Slack, or maybe you just pause it. Maybe you just go into the platform and pause the campaign, and just, especially if you're trickling emails out and you're still sending, you just go and pause the campaign or halt it from there. Yeah.
We have 7 minutes left for him.
Yeah.
You can ask him questions if he doesn't run away.
I know it's like right before lunch, so I get it. Any other phishing horror stories out there? Or am I the only one that's ever stepped in it? So, okay. I think we're good. Uh-oh. Is it relevant? The commercial or this one? Forward to. Oh, tell me when. Oh, the analyzer, sorry, if I blew through that too fast. Oh, sorry. And that's like my only slide that's like different than the rest. I think we provide it.
We're going to have it posted on YouTube. It was actually streaming live on YouTube.
Uh-oh.
Post them. We're going to try and post links for what we have.
We can't go back and edit things? Oh, crap. I did not know that.
It was in the notes.
Oh, crap.
You're going to be notified.
This is why you read the fine print. I didn't say anything too bad. Thank you.